Hello, I'm Matteo, the Chief Mobile Opinionist, here at Tech Travel Geeks. And this is the Tech Travel Geeks side-by-side comparison between the Nokia 3.4 and the Nokia 2.4, two affordable smartphones from Nokia released in the latter part of 2020 and still on sale well into 2021. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. We will soon be releasing our long-term reviews of both the Nokia 2.4 and the Nokia 3.4. Right then, so I've been using both these devices as secondary devices for a while, but I'm now going into that phase where before I do a full long-term review, I actually put my main SIM card in. And the Nokia 3.4 and the Nokia 2.4 are now in a similar price range. They're around about £100 to £130 sterling, depending on where you buy them from. If you're lucky and your network provider is subsidising the cost of the Nokia 2.4, you can get it for as little as £60. What we'll do is we'll post links in the description to where you can purchase these devices on Amazon UK. So check out the prices there. That's the most up-to-date pricing we recommend checking out. And buying from Amazon means that you get the SIM-free device, no ties with a network, and no compulsory top-up charges. Right then, so these two devices, as I said, are in the same price range, more or less, but offer very different experiences. As you can see, just side by side, the Nokia 2.4 is actually a longer device than the Nokia 3.4. That's because it's a different aspect ratio screen, different body, different battery even. And they're very, very different devices in the price range. So technically the Nokia 3.4 is a step up in terms of overall experience. It is a 3 series device, as opposed to the Nokia 2.4, which is a 2 series device. Now, looking at the two devices, you can see that from the back, they also have different appearance. Now, interestingly, both of them have textured backs, but the two textures are different. So the Nokia 2.4 here has a nice textured back with a gradient of colour from a darker grey to a lighter silvery one at the top. I quite like this design with the gradient colour on it, and the Nokia brand in the middle. But the texture is actually quite fine here. It means that you don't leave any fingerprints on the screen when using it, even if you have greasy fingers like mine. And not only that, it's less slippery. Whereas the Nokia 3.4, as you can probably see here, has a much stronger texture. And in this charcoal colour is more uniform. It also feels more sort of not sandpapery. It's not like the 1+1 used to be. It's more like a proper texture, whereas the Nokia 2.4 is a finer one. If you're using both devices without a case on them, they will both be quite pleasant to use and not slippery, but I would say the Nokia 3.4 with its deeper grooves in that texture is easier to not have slip out of your hand. Now, as you can see, there's also two very different industrial designs in the back of the devices. Whilst they both share that Nokia logo in horizontal on the back of the device, they both have fingerprint scanners placed centrally in the upper half of the device, which is really, really handy for accessing your device. These fingerprint scanners work well. They seem to be a tried and tested fingerprint scanner technology. It's nothing new, nothing revolutionary. It just works, especially in this price category. It's really good to have a responsive touchpad for recognizing your fingerprint. Whereas the camera module on the Nokia 2.4 is just a simple centrally located pill shape. Now that camera module on the Nokia 2.4 houses two lenses. One is a 13 megapixel autofocus lens. It's a very basic smartphone camera at this point in 2021. It also has a 2 megapixel depth sensor. I'm not sure that really gives you any real advantage, but it's there. And for markets where the number of cameras you have maybe defines your spending power and your social status, that may be important to you. But in day-to-day use, the main camera is the one you use for everything, and it's decent enough camera on the Nokia 2.4, but nothing exceptional. The Nokia 3.4, on the other hand, goes with the Nokia sort of round camera module above that fingerprint scanner. In my experience, both fingerprint scanners perform equally. They're equally as good, as responsive, and not susceptible to wet fingers. And you see that the camera module is slightly more raised than on the Nokia 2.4, but it also has 3 cameras as well as a flash module. And those 3 cameras are a 13 megapixel standard wide lens, which has phase detection, autofocus, just a basic good 13 megapixel camera. There is also a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, which is great for capturing those wider outdoor environments or architecture. It's a handy camera to have, and I really do appreciate that on a smartphone. I much prefer that to macro cameras. And there is also a 2 megapixel depth sensor, without doubt very similar to the one with the Nokia 2.4. So in day-to-day use, the Nokia 3.4 has 2 main camera modules that work well. They work together potentially with some of the effects, but overall it's nothing exceptionally good. It's not great, but for the price, it'd be that £100 to £130 price range, it's pretty decent. Now, both of these phones have 13 megapixel cameras, and both of them are capable of recording full high definition video at 30 frames per second. That means that the video quality will be good enough with good lighting conditions to use on most people's TVs at the best resolution. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that this is because of the chipset, the computer chips inside the smartphones that run the phone itself, but also the camera. And these 2 phones have the most different of chipsets. So the Nokia 2.4 is running on MediaTek Helio P22 chipset, which is a basic entry-level chipset, but very, very efficient for its generation. Whereas the Nokia 3.4, it is running on, in this case, it's running on the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 chipset, which is a slightly newer chipset, but it's not that much more powerful in terms of day-to-day use than that MediaTek Helio chipset. So 2 different brands of chips on the inside. The one on the Nokia 2.4 is slightly older, but it holds up very well, and compared to other devices in this price range, performs very, very well. I would say that in day-to-day use, I don't really notice a difference between the 2 in terms of their performance. One thing to bear in mind is that both smartphones are similar in size, but the Nokia 2.4, as you can see side by side, is longer. That's because its screen on the front, its LCD panel on the front, is a longer aspect ratio. So the Nokia 2.4 has a 20:9 aspect ratio, where 20:9 is there. And it's an HD plus one. It's not full high definition, it's a standard 721. So it's 720 pixels by 1600. And that's quite a long screen. It's great for reading Twitter, scrolling through your posts on various social channels that involve scrolling. So it's good. The Nokia 3.4 uses its screen differently in terms of how it's laid out. Obviously, the Nokia 2.4 has a teardrop notch or a nipple notch at the top here, whereas the Nokia 3.4 has a dotch, a little cutout hole on the top left-hand side of the screen for the selfie camera. And whereas both devices on the back, their main sensors are 13 megapixel ones, you find 2 quite different selfie cameras. So the Nokia 2.4 has a 5 megapixel selfie camera, whereas the Nokia 3.4 ups the game with an 8 megapixel one. So two very different selfie cameras. I do notice a difference in terms of the selfies taken. If selfies are important to you, I would definitely recommend the Nokia 3.4 over the Nokia 2.4. Now, as I said, the screens are different aspect ratios, pretty much the same resolution. The Nokia 3.4 is 720 pixels by, in this case, 1560. So it's a 19.5 to 9 aspect ratio, rather than the 20 to 9 aspect ratio we have on the Nokia 2.4. In terms of operating system, and this is the setup that runs the phone, they're the same. They're running what some people refer to as stock Android. This is Android 1 on both devices. So it is a Google-like experience, similar to what you see on Google Pixel smartphones. It's clean, it's simple, and in some cases it might be a little frustrating coming to this smartphone from ones that people have been using in the past. Now, we have done a couple of videos on this subject matter on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, specifically how to get the 3 buttons at the bottom of your screen. So this is not the default navigation on the Nokia 2.4 or on the Nokia 3.4. You have system navigation settings which allow you to switch between the 3-button navigation and the gesture navigation. So I'll just reset it to gesture navigation at the moment, so you get to see that in action. So you'll see I have lost the 3 buttons at the bottom of my screen. That's because I have enabled gesture navigation. Now, gesture navigation does take a while to get used to. For most people, this is not something they want to do, and they can go back to the 3 buttons. But it is an option that you still have in the Nokia 2.4 and the 3.4 to choose which gesture navigation or button navigation you have on your device. So if you haven't already, please do check out those videos. They might be of use for you. But in terms of the overall experience, they're very, very similar because it's stock Android. So you have an app drawer where all your apps are, and you can choose which apps go on your home screen and how many home screens you have. And when you swipe to the left, you then have the Google feed, your Google feed as you would have on a Pixel and any other device using a Google-like launcher. It's a very useful set of information and articles and links to the weather or relevant content to you as a person. And I quite enjoy that. This is something that I do like having, is that Google-like experience of the Google launcher. The same goes for the settings. It's not super exciting. We have light mode on the Nokia 2.4 here and dark mode on the Nokia 3.4. It's very simple and straightforward. There aren't too many pre-installed apps, though I have to say, unlike the first HMD Global Nokia smartphones a few years ago, there has been a slight creep of pre-installed applications that come on the device. And you can find out more about that in our unboxing and setup videos for the Nokia 2.4 and Nokia 3.4. But overall, clean user experience, clean Android distribution, very good and straightforward. There is little or no customizations from Nokia apart from the camera app. Both these devices have the Nokia camera, which is very, very close to what we get from Google. In terms of performance, there is a slightly faster experience, especially when gaming, on the Nokia 3.4 because it has a Snapdragon chipset compared to the MediaTek one. But if your main use of a smartphone is for social media, messaging, video calls, phone calls, they're both pretty equivalent. If anything, with a longer aspect ratio screen, the Nokia 2.4 has a certain advantage. You scroll slightly less if you have a longer screen. So that's one thing to bear in mind. In terms of connectivity, there's an odd difference. So the Nokia 3.4 has the usual Wi-Fi. It's all 2.4 gigahertz. There's no 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It works great. You can also make your phone become a Wi-Fi hotspot if you have data to spare and you want to share it, say, with a tablet computer or another device. The same with the Nokia 2.4. But the odd thing is that the Nokia 2.4, so the one in the lower series, so the Nokia 2 series, has Bluetooth 5, the latest version of Bluetooth, which does allow you to connect multiple devices at once, such as a smartwatch or earphones at the same time. Whereas the Nokia 3.4 only has Bluetooth 4.2, which is puzzling, but for most people won't be a big deal breaker. Now, the other thing, which is the other way around, is the Nokia 2.4, in the European version that we have, does not have NFC. So you won't be able to use the smartphone for example, contactless payments, accessing public transit, and so forth. Whereas the Nokia 3.4 does have that. So you can use your smartphone for Google Pay, for accessing public transit, or any other thing that you'd use NFC for. So that's the key differences between the two. Newer version of Bluetooth that allows you to do more on the Nokia 2.4, older version on the Nokia 3.4, no NFC on the Nokia 2.4, whilst the Nokia 3.4 does have NFC. Both devices charge using USB cables, but there is a key difference here. The Nokia 2.4 uses the older micro USB format for charging. Now, I know this is going to sound a bit crazy, but I was going to let companies get away with this in 2020. It was the last year. Any new smartphones this year that launch with micro USB, I don't think is a good thing anymore. The world is moving on to USB Type-C. But this device did launch in 2020. It is a budget smartphone. It's an affordable smartphone. If micro USB brings down the cost or keeps it low, I'm happy with that. So just bear in mind that it has USB in the micro USB format for charging, for things like car chargers or any accessories that might be an issue. Whereas the Nokia 3.4 uses USB Type-C. This is the new standard. It works. Disappointingly, the Nokia 3.4 comes with a slow 10-watt charger in the box. The key difference there is that it is capable of fast charging at 15 watts. If you use a third-party charger or one from another phone, it does charge faster. Speaking of charging, both devices in my medium to heavy use will comfortably get through a full day of use. Now, there is some slight differences. The screen on the Nokia 3.4 and 2.4 are very similar. I imagine that you use the same amount of power. But in terms of chipset efficiency, I found that the Nokia 2.4 does have longer battery life. That may be in part to the fact that it has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery under that textured finish back, whereas the Nokia 3.4 has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery behind its own textured back. So two different battery sizes, slightly bigger screen that uses more power, but overall I found the Nokia 2.4 in normal use for messaging, social media, some light video and YouTube watching. The Nokia 2.4 does last longer. So I think we've covered all the key things. We've got battery, screen, usability, everything's there. One thing I just wanted to make you aware of, both these devices are Android One ones. If you go to Nokia's website, they have a lot of claims of monthly security updates and 2 years of operating system updates. I would take those with pinch of salt, because over the last few years Nokia had been quite good at those monthly security updates and operating system updates, but especially in 2020 and going into 2021, I found that not to be the case. Nokia 3.4, for example, has just upgraded for me to the January security update, and the Nokia 2.4 is still in the January security update. We're at the end of February. I would expect the February security update to be available to me. But this is something that Nokia need to deal with. It's not great that they're still advertising on their website that you will get monthly security updates if that's not the case. So I think this is something that they need to deal with. But apart from that, it's a clean operating system, though it is running on an older version of Android. We're now almost 6 months away from the release of Android 11. Both the Nokia 3.4 and the Nokia 2.4 launched with Android 10. They say there is a planned upgrade to Android 11, but at the end of February, beginning of March 2021, that isn't available yet. So Nokia probably need to sort that out, but overall, for most users, that's not a really big thing. Okay then, so we've covered everything. Both devices have the Google Assistant and a dedicated button. I'm not going to say the keyword to trigger everyone's favorite search engine assistant. That's the G word. So we'll wrap up this video by saying these are two great smartphones that offer great value for money. Both are pretty equivalent. The main difference is if you're playing games a lot, maybe the Nokia 3.4 is slightly better. On the other hand, if you use your smartphone for all the basics but don't want something with all ringing bells, the Nokia 2.4 is a very, very good option. Both devices in their base version come with 32 gigabytes of storage built in and 3 gigabytes of RAM, whereas the Nokia 2.4 comes with 2 gigabytes of RAM. There is a more expensive 64 gigabyte, 3 gigabyte version, but that's only available in select markets. So 32 megabytes for most people is more than enough. Don't expect to run all the latest games on it installed at the same time, because that 32 gigabytes is limited, but you do get expandability with microSD on both of them. So bear that in mind. You're not locked into that storage, you can expand it. So I'll wrap up this video. Thank you for watching all the way through here. More than 20 minutes if you made it to this point in the video. Thank you for watching. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube and check out our upcoming long-term reviews of both these devices. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.